Venezuela continues to prepare for war. What's even more interesting is that Russia is actively helping with these preparations. Let's take a closer look at this today. Let's get right into it. The United States continues sending large forces to the Caribbean and repeatedly threatens to invade Venezuela. Venezuela, threatened by the United States, sought military aid from Russia, China, and Iran, with Russia responding. Russia has begun supplying weapons to Venezuela. A Russian Ilyushin 76 left Moscow on October 24 and arrived in Caracas, Venezuela on October 26 after passing through Africa. The transport aircraft purposely avoided Western-monitored areas en route to Venezuela. United 24 media reported the aircraft may have carried up to 34 tons of supplies, including portable air defense systems and air-to-air missiles. The aircraft operator, Aviakan Zeta Trans, is a company sanctioned by the United States for allegedly working with the Russian military and supplying military cargo to global conflict zones. Alexei Zhuravlyev, deputy chairman of the Russian State Duma Defense Committee, said Russia could send nuclear-capable Oreshnik and Kaliber missiles to Venezuela or Cuba. The United States Institute for the Study of War said these remarks were likely meant to recall the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. In fact, many people were skeptical about whether Russia would provide military support since it is currently at war with Ukraine. They're having trouble with Ukraine, so can they really help Venezuela? Yet they are supporting Venezuela. Russia still signals willingness to work with Venezuela. Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesperson, told Telegraph Agency of the Soviet Union they remain in constant contact with Venezuela. Of course, he didn't reveal any specific details, but considering the context, it seems clear that Russia is willing to continue helping Venezuela and even provide weapon support. They are actually putting this into action. In addition, Venezuela continues to emphasize that they are receiving Russian-made weapons. President Maduro announced Venezuela has deployed over 5,000 Russian-made Igla-S anti-aircraft missiles nationwide, saying this ensures peace and stability. On top of that, President Maduro of Venezuela continues to say that they will keep using Russian-made Kh-31A anti-ship missiles. Venezuela has released footage of two Su-30 Mk fighter jets armed with Kh-31 anti-ship missiles flying over the Caribbean. This is being interpreted as the strongest show of force that Venezuela can display in a situation where China's military threat is escalating. The Kh-31 anti-ship missile is seen as the most dangerous weapon to the United States military if war breaks out between the United States and Venezuela. As a supersonic air-to-ship missile, one can strike and damage a warship. The problem is, China is also starting to support this. On November 4th, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs said China supports stronger international cooperation against transnational crime and opposes force or threats in international relations. They also oppose efforts to undermine peace and stability in South America and the Caribbean, and any excessive unilateral coercive actions against foreign vessels. They openly targeted and opposed the United States. A Washington Post report says Maduro is boosting Venezuela's military with support from China, Russia, and Iran. Russia is already playing a leading role, and China is also trying to provide some support, but it has not yet been confirmed what kind of support they are planning to provide. Additionally, Venezuela has mobilized 4.5 million militiamen. About 1 in 6 or 7 citizens has been drafted into the militia, which was organized by former President Chavez in Venezuela. It was originally created to hold pro-government rallies or demonstrations, but now it seems they are trying to use it for war. The Venezuelan government claims 4.5 million militia members, but estimates put the real number at about 160,000. The militia includes women, children, and the elderly, lacking proper guns, so they're unlikely to have a major role. If war starts, the Venezuelan military will quickly collapse with little resistance. Currently, the powerful United States military assets in the Caribbean are directly linked to this. The Gerald Alford Carrier Strike Group, 8 destroyers nuclear subs, F-35S B-1B Lancers attack cargo, 130 J gunships, and MQ-9 Reapers. It's an all-star lineup of United States weaponry. If they deploy ground troops, they'll likely need more forces, but for mainly airstrikes, this should suffice. If the United States launches a military operation, Venezuela clearly can't withstand it. Venezuela is in a severe economic crisis from long-term sanctions and is experiencing food and oil shortages. They mostly use old Soviet weapons, so if the United States attacks, they would almost certainly lose. In 2020, their military was 340,000, but by 2025, Venezuela's is just 109,000. Nearly 230,000 people are gone, mostly due to reported desertion. On top of that, most of their warships and fighter jets are out of commission due to aging and lack of maintenance, so they barely have any usable equipment. Venezuela appears to be strongly pushed back, and the opposition urges President Trump to use this chance to push for regime change. Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader and recent Nobel Peace Prize winner, stressed that Venezuelans are united in wanting Maduro's presidency to end. If the United States actually carries out a military operation against Venezuela, it is highly likely that the operation will not be a simple all-out war, but rather one of three forms or a combined operation involving these forms. The first scenario is an operation to capture President Maduro of Venezuela. It would take the form of a precision-targeted operation led by the CIA and United States Special Forces. As soon as information about the presidential palace or his hideout is secured, they could be deployed using helicopters or stealth transport aircraft. The operation's only goal is to capture Maduro alive, break Venezuela's symbolic leadership, and disable the regime's command network. This operation should be conducted like the 1989 capture of Noriega in Panama, with the duration limited to a few minutes. Some analyses say the operation's success rate is low because Maduro is well protected by air defenses at a military base near Caracas, with Cuban intelligence agents and a few Russian military advisors nearby. The second scenario involves a limited airstrike operation. This means using saturation bombing on Venezuelan military sites, air defenses, communications, and missile bases to dismantle the military, break command, and create chaos. This allows the United States military to undermine Maduro's authority and potentially spark a military rebellion or coup, causing the regime to collapse. The United States Air Force is reportedly rotating B-2 stealth bombers and F-35 jets over the Caribbean to check their range. Lastly, the third scenario is a strategic occupation operation that quickly seizes Venezuela's key infrastructure, such as airports, oil refineries, pipelines, and power plants. This scenario seeks to cripple the Maduro government by severing Venezuela's economic lifelines, not by direct regime change. United States Marines, amphibious units, special aircraft, or transport forces might be deployed. This operation seeks to cripple government finances by blocking Venezuela's main oil export routes. Interestingly, these three operations can be done independently, sequentially with gaps, or at the same time. In other words, the first stage would neutralize the air defense system with airstrikes, the second stage would seize key infrastructure, and finally, special forces would be deployed to capture Maduro. It's clear there won't be a major ground troop deployment like the Iraq War. Currently, about 16,000 United States troops are connected to the Caribbean, which isn't enough to control all of Venezuela. Venezuela is 4 to 5 times larger than the Korean Peninsula and has complex terrain with jungles and mountains. The United States military will likely aim to quickly neutralize the regime's core and trigger a political transition via internal opposition or pro-American leaders. In other words, if this operation actually takes place, most military experts agree that it will be more of a surgical strike to remove the regime rather than an invasion. In other words, an operation to induce regime collapse rather than a full-scale war. Given these circumstances, it's fair to say tensions between the United States and Venezuela have escalated into a quasi-war, surpassing a diplomatic conflict. Venezuela, with Russian military backing, maintains a hardline stance as the United States treats this like a new Cuban Missile Crisis and escalates its response. If either side makes a miscalculation or an accidental clash occurs, this could easily escalate beyond a regional issue in South America and become a new flashpoint in the Cold War structure. With the United States ready to launch military operations at any time, the situation could change quickly in the coming days or weeks. Share your thoughts on the current situation in the comments. Thanks for watching.